6 more days, folks, until WrestleMania 31 this Sunday. Could not be any more excited for it. The final edition of #AskGSM right here today before WrestleMania this Sunday. So a lot of questions pertaining to WrestleMania this upcoming week. Very much looking forward to it, folks. We got a stacked show here today with all the awesome questions that you sent in. If you want to send in a question, as always, you can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant. You can leave a comment down below in the comments section, or you can find me on Facebook at Graham G.S. Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights, or leave a comment on the wall itself. With all those different ways to send in questions, your next set of questions will be involved in the post-WrestleMania show. After Sunday, you can send them in. I'll probably put up the Q&A thing right after WrestleMania ends, or maybe beforehand. We'll have to wait and see. But still, that's going to be a great show, too, with all your questions coming out of WrestleMania 31. So 2 big shows today and next week as well. But let's get right into it. First question comes from Pig Window from YouTube. Their question was, who do you think is the most underrated superstar by IWC standards? For example, guys like Luke Harper and Cesaro do not qualify because they are IWC darlings. So basically anyone who does not get the credit they should from the hardcore fans. And this is going to piss a lot of people off. It may not surprise many people, and maybe I am biased, but personally, I already wrote an article about this if you want to check it out. So I go into more detail in the article that I wrote for Bleacher Report a few weeks ago. But The Miz, I know he's one of the most hated people by the IWC, and in some respects, I understand he's not the world's greatest worker. Did he deserve to be the main event of WrestleMania 27? Probably not. I agree with you on that. Don't get me wrong. But I think currently, though, I do think he's underrated. Mizdow is getting all the attention, and rightfully so. He's doing an amazing role. He's doing an amazing job in the role that he's currently cast in as Mizdow, as his stunt double, and he deserves all the fanfare he's been getting. However, Miz deserves equal credit for being a perfect foil to Mizdow. He's an amazing heel with his mic skills. He's always had really good mic skills, but I think he's doing the best work of his career right now. Better than even some of the work he was doing when he was WWE champion. Because by that point, the annoying heel shtick saying, I'm better than you, I main evented WrestleMania, all this other kind of shit, he ran that shtick into the ground. At least with the Hollywood role, that kind of fits him to a T. He's really doing something that, in a role that he's comfortable in. You know what I mean? I think it's perfect. Kind of playing up that he's this big shot Hollywood guy after, being in a WWE Studios movie, The Marine. I think it's great. I think it's really entertaining. Like I said, I'm probably biased, and then I am biased, and I'll admit it, because I'm a Miz fan. I always have been. But I do think, honestly, from an objective standpoint, excuse me, I do think he's been doing some great work recently and deserves credit for doing some amazing stuff with Damian Sandow since the whole start of the angle back in the summer. So that may surprise some people, probably won't for others, but I do think The Miz, I don't know if he's the most underrated, but he was the first person that came to mind when you asked that question. At the first KFC, they got 2 questions which were sent in last week. And by the way, too, let me put a little disclaimer. If you put in a question, this was from YouTube. I just skipped over by accident last week, so I apologize for that. And I do that from time to time, so my apologies. But if you send in a question via Twitter, make sure to use the hashtag AskGSM. But sometimes it does not show up in my mentions for whatever reason. I know RJ last week sent in like 2 questions, and even though I'm following him, it doesn't matter if I'm following him or not. But the question didn't pop on in my mentions for some reason. Maybe it didn't. I just skipped over it. But if that happens and I do not fire off your question here and I did not get back to you in terms of, hey, I forgot your question, let me know and I'll be sure to include it in next week's show. So just apologies in advance for that if that happens to you. But the first KFC, they got 2 questions. First one being, should there be an NXT match at WrestleMania? Like I said, this was asked last week before the whole news broke this past week on Saturday, that a tournament will be held on Tuesday to determine who will be a participant in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 31. The tournament will consist of Adrian Neville, Finn Balor, Hideo Itami, and Tyler Breeze. And I think that is great. It kind of gets some NXT flavor in the WrestleMania mix. Personally, I said this last year, and I said the same thing a couple weeks ago. I've been saying this for a while now. The pre-show match should have been an NXT match, in my opinion, even if it aired exclusively on the WWE Network, where NXT calls home anyway. They're having the tag team title match, and good for the Usos for getting a match on the card, as well as Kid and Cesaro, but I could not care less about the Matadors being in there, about the New Day being in there. It just feels like such a waste, you know what I mean? So, that being said, I would have preferred that an NXT match kicked off the show, or on the kickoff show anyway. But at least we're getting something in the form of them being in the tournament, or in the Battle Royal. That could mean a variety of things. Could they be eliminated within 10 seconds? Sure. I would hope not. Triple H, I would think, is wiser than that. I mean, why hold the tournament at all if they're going to be eliminated in anticlimactic fashion? I put nothing past this company with all the shit that we've seen in the last couple of months, years, decades, whatever, with all the mind-boggling decisions they have made. So nothing surprises me at this point when it comes to kind of burying young talent. But yeah, I do agree there should have been an NXT match at WrestleMania, but like I said, at least we're getting them in the form, we're getting them in some form at WrestleMania in the Battle Royal. A second question, push one, keep one, fire one, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns. So this is a hard question because you could look at this question from two different standpoints. From like a personal standpoint, it's easy. I would keep Seth, push Dean, and fire Roman. But from a business standpoint, that's insanely idiotic, considering how Roman Reigns could be marketable one day. Is he right now? I think he, sells good merch. He has good merch sales and stuff like that. He sells well, and he will continue to be a draw, or, become a draw in due time. I do think it's a little quick for him to be main eventing WrestleMania. I've talked about that ad nauseum in the past. But, of those three guys, he is the most marketable. He's got the look, which I think is just... I understand the look they're looking for, but I do feel like guys like Punk, Rollins, Ambrose, Bryan, like Daniel Bryan especially, considering how over he is/was about a year ago on the road to WrestleMania. They completely dropped the ball on that when he returned a couple months ago. But, injuries happen, but the aftermath with him coming back was all WWE's fault. It has nothing to do with Daniel Bryan. I'll get back to that a little later on. But, yeah, it would just be idiotic to fire Roman Reigns considering how he does, of those three, have the most potential to be the next breakout star, the next John Cena, if you can consider that a good thing. So from a business perspective, I would probably have to keep Roman, push Seth, or push Roman, keep Seth, and then fire Dean. But I think Dean's so tremendously talented. He doesn't fit the typical mold of the WWE, whatever management is looking for. But that's if it came down to that, which obviously all three guys are huge stars. But if it came down to that, they would probably push Roman all the way and then keep Seth, and then get rid of Dean, which I think is dumb, because I think the other way is better, personally, from my perspective, and then I would fire Roman, keep Seth, and then push Dean, because I think he's great, but, it could go one of two ways, depending on how you look at it. Justin G, is back with another set of questions, his first one being, last week we touched on Alex Riley returning to the ring. How far do you see Alex Riley going in NXT? Do you see him returning to the main roster and having some sort of big role? If he does come back to the main roster at some point, it's not going to be in a big role. It's not going to be like as a world champion or anything like that. I think I think what he's doing right now is great, and I do think he can get back to main roster status at some point. But I think the days of him being a mid-card champion maybe are past him. I think those days were back in like 2011 when he first broke away from The Miz and was doing the whole say it to my face shtick and was really, really over. And he's still over now in NXT, but it's different from the main roster. That being said, though, I don't know if he's ever going to become NXT champion. I think it might have been you, Justin, who asked that last week, if I could ever see him becoming champion. If there was ever a main roster guy, I mean, technically he's not a main roster guy, but he was from the main roster, like a Kid, a Cesaro, whatever. He would be the one I would put the belt on, because I think the passion that he showed in recent weeks, he's not the best in-ring worker, but the passion that he showed in his past promos, in his matches, I think is phenomenal. And as someone wrote on Bleacher Report, which I thought was a really good article, saying that his passion is what is going to equate to a career resurgence for this guy, and I could not agree more with that sentiment. So I do think he's going to do well for himself in NXT. Have a few feuds like with guys like Kevin Owens, maybe Tyler Breeze, whatever. I think he might be able to get back to the main roster at some point. Having a big role, probably not. They have enough talent as it is on the main roster, and I don't think they're looking. They're scrambling for mid card guys. They already have a whole bunch of them in a ladder match at WrestleMania. But I would love to see him back in the main roster. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see him back in the main roster as U.S. or Intercontinental Champion. I don't think those days are going to happen. I think those days are behind him. But yeah, I think there is a chance he could get back to the main roster at some point. Not betting on it, but there is a chance, though. His second question, with the TNA roster growing thin, most recently Samoa Joe going back to his roots at Ring of Honor, and all likely signing with the WWE, do you think TNA could close down? So I've answered this question in the past, most notably back in August when the news broke that TMZ broke the news that TNA was going bankrupt or something weird like that, or that Spike TV canceled the TV deal. That's what it was. So people, rumors running rampant that TNA would close down. Well, first of all, let me, I hate the I hate the notion that people want to see it closed down. I know there's a lot of TNA haters out there, and if you don't enjoy TNA, that is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like if you really are a wrestling fan, and who am I to say, like, what makes you a wrestling fan? But I feel like if you love wrestling as much as you say you do, why would you want there to be less competition? I know WWE's like above the screen and TNA is like down here. They're not really competition, but more of a variety. There are people out there, believe it or not, that do not really like WWE that much, or the current state of their programming, and tune into TNA for an alternative instead. A huge, vast difference in alternative? Not really. I mean, they're kind of similar in some respects. Lucha Underground's a true alternative in my opinion. But TNA is an alternative to WWE in some respects, and some people do enjoy that. I think TNA has been doing some great work in recent weeks, months, since they went back to, or moved over to Destination America. Doesn't reflect that in the ratings, but what can you expect from a 9 o'clock show on a Friday? You know what I mean? On a network that like half the country gets. So that being said, I don't think it's going to close down. We hear all these rumors all the time. I think if anything, with the roster growing thin, they were just going to push more people or bring more people in. That's never really been an issue for me. Like, I know when Sting left, Hogan, AJ, Kaz and Daniel, Sabin, all these other guys, Samoa Joe, like you mentioned, I don't think, oh, TNA's going to close down. The only time I've ever thought that was when they got their TV deal canceled. That was probably the closest they've come in recent years to actually going under. And I'm glad they didn't, because I think, like I said, I think more competition, more wrestling variety, I think, is a good thing. So no, I don't think they're going to close down. Maybe at some point, I think their days are numbered. I'm not going to be a pessimist and say they're going to close down in the near future. But I do think, maybe down the line, but like in the immediate future, probably not. I do think, Samoa Joe, he wasn't doing much anyway. I know he was a 10-year veteran, but it wasn't like he was a top guy on his way out like AJ was. They were really underutilizing him for years, and he's better off gone anyway, especially if he's WWE bound. His next question was, do you think that in time, Tyler Breeze will be transformed into being an alternative to John Morrison? Now, I love this question because I never really thought of Tyler Breeze as a John Morrison-like character, but after you put that in, it really got me thinking. I thought it was a great comparison, because when I looked at Tyler Breeze, and still do look at him to this day, I see him as like a current day Shawn Michaels, and singing his own entrance music, the pretty boy thing. Is he going to be the next HBK? There is really the no next somebody. I don't believe that for a second, but I do think he can kind of fit in that role, kind of like a hybrid between Morrison, HBK, and Ziggler. That's what people saw him as, a hybrid between Ziggler and Shawn Michaels. I love the comparison that you made. I think he's more of a hybrid between those three guys altogether, with John Morrison with his flashy moveset. When John Morrison was a heel, of course, as Johnny Nitro or whatever. I think he does kind of fit that role perfectly. And, I think he could be a nice alternative to John Morrison. John Morrison, I mean, never had the mic skills. Tyler Breeze does. His gimmick is limited. I do think John Morrison could have had more potential to be world champion than Tyler Breeze does, because I think his gimmick is a little bit more mid-card based, whereas John Morrison could have been a world champion if his mic skills weren't so shit. But Tyler Breeze, is better in that department, in that although he does have a semi-limited gimmick, I do think his mic skills are above and beyond what Morrison's was. So maybe he could become world champion, kind of fill in that role that Morrison had as an upper mid-card. It would be better than him being, a superstars bound, which I'm sure is going to be the case when he eventually gets called up. Not because he's not talented, of course, but because they just don't know how to handle talent. Look no further than Bo Dallas, than Big E, Emma. The list goes on and on and on of people they've, Xavier Woods, for example, too, of people they called up and really had nothing for. They didn't recognize their true potential, their true talent. So I think it's going to be the case with him, unfortunately. But yes, I do love the comparison that it could be an alternative to John Morrison. I absolutely agree. And his final question here, when you look at the tag team division in NXT right now, it seems that NXT is pushing Enzo Amore and Big Cass. Do you see Enzo and Cass and Carmella coming to the main roster as a trio, or do you still think they will be brought up individually? I think they should be brought up as a tag team. Like I said, putting nothing past this company. It would not surprise me for a second if they saw something in Big Cass immediately and were like, oh, we're going to push him to the moon. And it happens all the time. In a tag team, they see two, great performers, and they all of a sudden take a liking to one of them who is really not that much better than the other one, and they break him up. They push, like Titus O'Neil is a perfect example. I don't know if they broke him up because they saw more potential in Titus O'Neil. I think he does have more potential than Darren Young does. But I don't know if they saw that in him, and that's why they opted to break him up. But the timing of the breakup was dumb on the road to WrestleMania, and they were both directionless. Young got hurt. O'Neil was on Superstars for a year, and he still is now, even though the primetime players are back together, which makes no sense to me. They should be, well used on Raw and in the tag team division on the whole, which is fucking dumb, like I said before. Another rant for another day. But yeah, it would not surprise me for a second if they thought, hey, Big Cass is the next big thing. We need another big guy. Let's push him to the moon. They break up him and Enzo, and they have Carmella with Cass. I mean, I don't really care for Carmella. I think she's a nice addition to the act. I think she's funny. She's a natural heel character, though. Like, I don't like her, but I do think she's a fine addition to the act. I mean, the act can only get better, and I think they're one of the most consistently entertaining aspects of NXT, which is really saying something considering how great that show is. Along with Kevin Owens, Balor, and all the others, I think Enzo and Cass are just great, and I've been very high on the team since I first saw them in 2013 or late 2013. But yeah, I do think they should be brought up as a tag team. Like I said before, if they were to break them up, Enzo, I think, even though he is the smaller of the two, he's pretty small, I do think he has a brighter future as either a wrestler or a manager. Big Cass, I mean, when he was on his own for a while when Enzo got injured last year, he really wasn't doing it for me and many other people. I mean, he was fine, like the promos were okay, but in the ring, I didn't really care for it. I couldn't have cared less for his feud with Aiden English last year. So, I think Enzo is very entertaining in his own right, as is Big Cass, but I think Enzo has more of a connection to the crowd than Cass does. So I feel like, though, like I said before, I feel like they definitely should be brought up as a tag team. The tag team division right now in WWE needs all the help it can get, and I think they could only add to it when they're eventually called up at some point. Nick W., his question was, what do you think about the fallout? What do you think the fallout will be if Roman Reigns does not win at WrestleMania? Would you think the hype was worth nothing? So, what hype is pretty much my question for you. What hype for this match? I mean, there's really been no build-up aside from Roman Reigns saying, I can, I will. Granted, tonight on Raw, and some of you might be watching this after Raw, granted, we're getting the final face-off, but is it too little too late? Absolutely. I'm still going to be looking forward to the match. I've been looking forward to it since it was first announced back at the Rumble, when Reigns won that and then Lesnar retained the title. I've been looking forward to the matchup since then, but the build-up itself has left a lot to be desired with Brock Lesnar not being there, and when he is there, they're not utilizing him. He's a backstage, he's a pawn to Paul Heyman. He's just standing in the ring, not saying anything. He's not beating anyone up. He's not talking trash. The interview I thought was great last week, and I thought did, only help my excitement for that matchup, but I feel like the build itself has been really, really lackluster, for lack of a better term, but that said, though, if Roman Reigns doesn't win, I mean, there's no chance of that happening. I'm absolutely 100% sold on him winning. And the only chance that he would not win is, granted, Lesnar could win and then Seth Rollins cashes in. And then it won't matter, because maybe Lesnar cheats and Roman Reigns looks, strong in defeat, whatever. That could always be the case. I don't know if that's going to happen. I feel like Roman will just win the belt. We'll go off the show with that, which is fine and dandy. I don't know if the reaction will think the same, but I don't think the crowd will think the same, the live reaction to him winning that championship. But that said, though, I feel like if Lesnar was to win and Rollins cashes in, it won't damage Reigns, considering he would be challenging for that title anyway. He would be in chase mode. But if Lesnar wins and nothing happens, kind of like Bound for Glory 2011, for those of you that watched TNA, Angle won. He was the heel champion, heel world champion. Bobby Roode, won the BFG series. Almost an exact scenario. And everyone thought Bobby Roode was going to win. I'm thinking, I don't really want him to win. I don't really like him as a babyface. At that time, anyway. I thought he was amazing as a heel. He's still really good today as a babyface. But at that time, I wasn't sold on him. And then Angle won. And presumably that was due to the fact that Hogan, who was working with TNA at that time, of course, was not high on Bobby Roode, which is stupid because I think he's great, but I didn't really mind it because I didn't think he was ready to win the big one anyway. And I feel like that's kind of the same scenario with Roman Reigns. He is not ready. As a babyface anyway. If he turns heel, I really have no idea. But they're not going to have Lesnar go over, retain the title, and then the show just ends with that. Either Seth cashes in or Roman Reigns wins the belt. I feel like they're not going to have Lesnar retain the title successfully against Roman, and that's it. And if that happens, then he signed a new contract. Because, I think tonight is the last night on Monday Night Raw that the two parties will be in the same building will be in the same arena before WrestleMania. And they might sign a contract over WrestleMania weekend. I really have no idea. But like I've said in the past, I am convinced, 100% convinced, that Lesnar is UFC bound after his WWE contract expires in just a little over a week. So that being said, I feel like there's no chance, because they're not going to have, they're going to book the finishes so far in advance that they're not going to have Lesnar. They're not going to book Lesnar to win if he's not even contracted at the company. That makes no sense. So, yeah, if Lesnar wins and the show goes off with that, is it going to hurt Reigns? Probably a little bit, but not too much to the point where it was built up so much, like with Bobby Roode and Angle. Bobby Roode was built up very, very strongly going into that WrestleMania, or WrestleMania Bound for Glory in 2011, and the build was great. And the build for this match has not been great. So if it doesn't live up to the lofty expectations, no one's going to be disappointed, because we didn't really expect much out of the match to begin with. And we already knew that Roman Reigns wasn't ready. Maybe you give him his first world title at WrestleMania 32 instead. Like, I'd be fine with that. We'll have to wait and see. The next question comes from Casey J. His question was, should Adrian Neville make his main roster debut at WrestleMania? I do not see him staying in NXT too much longer. Adrian Neville's time is right now. There's no question. There's a very big chance of it. I've got my money on Adrian Neville and Finn Balor winning that tournament. Either one of those guys. Tommy and Breeze, like I said before, are both great, and I'd be content with whoever wins the tournament. But the bigger stars of those four include the former NXT champion Adrian Neville and the future NXT champion, or I hope so anyway. If not, it's fine. But, a future star. A future WWE champion, I'll say that much. Finn Balor. So, yeah, I feel like of those two, one of them is going to make it to WrestleMania. Adrian Neville, I've said for weeks now, I've said for months when people ask me who should be the next NXT call-up, Zayn or Neville. Balor, too, some people might make a case for. I feel like he should stay down in NXT for a little bit longer. But if he gets called up the night after WrestleMania, I'd mark hard, because I think it's going to be amazing. And the guy is ready. Him, Tommy, Owens, they're all pretty much ready. But I would love to see him down in NXT for a little bit longer before he goes to Raw and SmackDown. I mean, hell, Rusev was down there for only like 8 months. I mean, he was already signed to WWE long before that, but as Alexander Rusev, he wasn't there for very long before being called up. So Finn Balor might be the same thing, and he's even more ready than Rusev was, and that goes without saying. But, yeah, I think there is a very good chance that Neville wins the battle, or wins the tournament, goes into the Battle Royal, loses, I mean, that's fine, and then makes his Raw debut the next night. Like, I'd be fine with it. And even if he doesn't, then he makes his Raw debut. Regardless, I think he's main roster bound. He, unlike Balor and a few others, have done everything there is to do in NXT. They won the tag team titles. He was the longest reigning NXT champion in history. He had a brief feud with Owens. He feuded with Sammy and everyone else down there. So there's really nothing left for him to do. So I'd be fine with him going to the main roster right after WrestleMania. There's no better time than that, in my opinion. At Reborn Again, his question was, and this was from last week, by the way, one of those questions that I missed over, so my apologies to John for that. But his question was, who in your mind is the best and who's the worst WWE and or world champion ever? So best, I mean, I kind of split this up into categories. Best world champion, Bruno Sammartino, I believe. I mean, it's really all subjective. Like I've said before, he was a champion during an era where there were really no world challenger. There weren't many challengers, and during a time that there wasn't TV every single week. But I feel like Bruno Sammartino, along with maybe Austin. I mean, it's hard to say for Austin, because even though he was the hottest superstar during that time, he was never like the hottest WWE champion. Like, he didn't have great range with that title. It was pretty much like a hot potato back then. But regardless, I do feel like Bruno Sammartino is the greatest WWE champion of all time, in my opinion. The best world heavyweight champion, it's up there between Batista and Triple H. I'd have to give it to Triple H after the long, dominant reign that he had from 02 to 05. Say what you will about it. Was it boring? Was it, all about Triple H? Did he bury people? Whatever you want to claim. And I won't get into that here, but I do feel like he did have a great reign as World Heavyweight Champion. Not necessarily putting over other people. He did at the end, and, at WrestleMania 20, WrestleMania 21. But, his title defenses, the length that he held, all 5 times that he held that World Heavyweight Championship. So, yeah, I would have to go for Triple H for best World Heavyweight Champion. Going back to 02, not like WCW history here. Worst WWE Champion, I got a couple. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, Rey Mysterio held that belt for like all of an hour. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say. Mr. McMahon held the belt for all of 6 days. Kane held the belt for a day. Del Rio. If we're talking about like legitimate reigns, I'd probably have to go with Del Rio. I mean, there's been like over 50 different WWE champions. I'm not exactly sure how many, but I know there's been over 100 reigns. And I think Del Rio, the 2 times that he held that belt were so bad. Like, he held it for like a month back in late 2011, right after he won at SummerSlam. Then he held it for another month after that. After the, he was booked so poorly in late 2011 that he was never the same after that. I keep on going back to that every single time I talk about Del Rio. But, I feel like those 2 reigns as WWE Champion were kind of the end of him. And he had a nice little run as World Heavyweight Champion in early 2013, but as heel Del Rio, he was pretty much done after that, those 2 flop of reigns as WWE Champion in 2011. So I'd probably have to give him as the worst. I mean, there's probably others, but as like a legitimate reign that wasn't like a day long or an hour long, whatever. And worst World Heavyweight Champion, I put the Great Khali. I mean, you could put Jack Swagger too. I've said him before. But Khali, at least Jack Swagger's matches were watchable. He was booked so poorly. Khali wasn't booked horrendously, but he was just so fucking bad that his matches were so unbearable to watch. So I'd probably have to put Khali as the worst World Heavyweight Champion in history. I'm at RJ_Marceau. His question is, after going through most of the WrestleManias, what main event match is overrated in your opinion? This could be like the top 3 matches on the card, not just strictly the main event. No one match really stuck out to me, and by this point, I'm up to WrestleMania 28. The review of that, by the way, should be up tomorrow. Cheap plug here on the channel. But the most overrated matches, I mean, there's a few of them. For me, I don't know if it's really overrated. It's not like the IWC, most wrestling fans from what I've seen, whatever you want to call them, us, whatever, said that this match was amazing or stellar. I mean, people just thought it was okay. Triple H and Jericho from WrestleMania 18, it was a good match, but it was not great. I felt like the down the stretch was really not good. I mean, the story with Stephanie was not. It felt contrived to me, like they needed something else to add to that matchup, and it just felt like they pulled it right out of their ass. No pun intended with Stephanie and Triple H, but and Jericho, as great as he was in that heel role as the snarmy, the wormy World Heavyweight Champion, WWE Undisputed Champion, whatever, he was booked pretty poorly. Like, he had to cheat to win, and he was never really seen as a threat, and the match itself was nothing. The crowd didn't really care for because they were really, really hot for Hogan and Rock earlier on in the night, which should have closed the show, in everyone's opinion. So, probably Triple H and Jericho. The most underrated, I don't know if it's the most underrated, or most overrated, excuse me. I don't know if it's the most overrated, but it's definitely up there. There's not many other matches. Like, there's matches on the list that aren't really, like, that I was thinking of that aren't really overrated, that people called that were great. Like Cena Rock 2, I did not like that match, but it's not like people recognize it as being something great. That was not a great match, obviously. It was a pretty terrible match. Cena Miz is not, again, like people recognize it as being something great. I think there's a general consensus on a lot of the WrestleMania main events. Hogan and Sid from WrestleMania 9 or 8, I think it was. Fucking hated that match. I thought that was the worst main event in WrestleMania history. New article up, by the way, nextEraWrestling.net. You want to check it out. Ranking every main event in history, me and @_John's Jargon on Twitter. It was a great article. It turned out really, really well. Make sure to check it out at your convenience. Cheap plug. But, yeah, that's probably what I have to put as the most overrated match is Triple H and Jericho from WrestleMania 18. And the second question was, would you be interested in a Tyler Breeze and Bo Dallas tag team? Guess they've been working house shows. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Like I said before, they really have not done anything with Bo Dallas. He's not even on TV right now. The guy's been set to go for months, from what I understand. But yeah, I'd be fine with that. I heard they got positive reviews from their house shows and work in the house shows and whatever. Bo Dallas is really entertaining. Tyler Breeze is really entertaining. And Tyler Breeze, like I expressed earlier, is a guy that I feel they're not going to use to his full potential when he eventually gets called up. He's going to be an undercard act, just like Xavier, just like Emma, just like Big E, and all these others, just like Bo Dallas, Adam Rose. So I feel like in a tag team, it's a little better off. And like I said earlier, the tag team division in WWE needs all the help it can get. So I would love to see them form up. There's really no it's not like Tyler Breeze and Fandango or Tyler Breeze and Dolph Ziggler, like pairings that make sense, but I feel like their entertainment factor can be like off the charts. Like Kane and Daniel Bryan to me didn't have any chemistry, but in time they showed that their humor, at first, and then in time they showed that their matches can be really, really good and they worked extraordinarily well together. So yeah, I would love to see a tag team between those two, kind of give them something to do, considering how Bo Dallas was a jobber pretty much before he left with an injury late last year, and Tyler Breeze probably won't be doing anything of note when he eventually gets called up. Even though he should be, but he probably won't be. Let's be realistic here, people. At the Average Grunt, his question was, do you think that making the other big four pay-per-views, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble 4 hours would be a good idea. No. And here's why. I feel like WrestleMania being 4 hours plus the 2-hour pre-show and whatever the hell they have after it on the WWE Network for the post-show is good enough. I feel like 4 hours is make it special. You don't need, I know the other big 4 pay-per-views are special, but WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Rumble are here. And then WrestleMania is up here. Like, I know they're all equal in terms of big 4 pay-per-views, but there's nothing else like WrestleMania, in which it should be the only show that is 4 hours long. And I know there's like 3-hour Raws now, and there's 3-hour pay-per-views, and there's really no difference, and the pay-per-views do not feel as special. I understand that argument, but there's really no need to make the other pay-per-views, Survivor Series, the Rumble, and Survivor Series, Rumble, and SummerSlam 4 hours, because most of WrestleMania for that 4 hours is for the elaborate entrances, and you don't have that at the Rumble or Survivor Series. That's why it's WrestleMania. You know what I mean? At the Royal Rumble, we already have an hour Rumble match. You don't need a 3-hour undercard, because most of the undercard is throwaway anyway. So, yeah, just keep it the way it is, I feel. I feel like, just keep it with 4 hours. It's best kept that way. At Brad Berdari's got a couple questions. His first one being, do you think a legitimate argument can be made that CM Punk was the best all-around performer in WWE history? Wow, very bold statement there. I don't know if I would necessarily agree. I mean, I'm a huge CM Punk fan, obviously, but I don't know if he's the best all-around performer. And can an argument be made? Is that your question? I would think so. I would agree, yes, an argument can be made. I don't know if I personally would say that he's the best all-around performer. He's absolutely up there, but I feel like Daniel Bryan's up there too. He's an amazing wrestler, probably even more so than CM Punk, probably even a better wrestler than him. But he has that charisma that Punk did as well in 2011. He had that in 2013, 2014. But Bryan's mic skills, Punk's mic skills are here. Bryan's getting better, but he's not, a master of the mic like Punk was during his prime, during his peak. But I would also put on that list Randy Savage, Eddie Guerrero. A lot of people would say Eddie, and I would absolutely agree that he is the best all-around performer in WWE history. I feel like, I would probably go with Eddie for that, but like your question is, can an argument be made for that? Yeah, an argument can be made, but I would not agree. He's on the list, but I would not agree that he's the best all-around performer. I'd probably put Flair up there, Eddie, and, like I said, Shawn Michaels, and maybe even Savage, like I said before. Those people I'd probably put before Punk. Maybe top 10 or top 5, but I don't know if I would put him at number 1. His second question, did WrestleMania 30 exceed your expectations? Yes, it did. I don't know what I was thinking going into it. I can't really remember exactly. I was looking forward to a great show, and it was better than anything I could have anticipated. Like even the Cena-Wyatt match and the Taker-Lesnar match, although those matches were not good, I did not enjoy them. They weren't. I mean, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar was terrible. There's no beating around the bush for that one. That match was a terrible match. But Cena Wyatt was not horrendous. I did not enjoy it. I didn't think it was good. But I didn't think it was like the worst thing ever. But the big moments over-delivered. I thought they were. Everything else in that show, the streak breaking was a moment. I didn't love it, but it was a moment for sure. Daniel Bryan winning the belt, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, the Battle Royal, the quick Shield win. Of course, what else am I missing from that WrestleMania? I feel like there's other matches from that WrestleMania. There are other moments from that WrestleMania that I'm missing. Well, Daniel Bryan's big win, of course, made up for it. And everything else on that show, the Battle Royal, like I mentioned. In the opening segment was what I'm thinking of. Hogan, Austin, and Rock. A moment that kicked off that show better than any other WrestleMania in history, in my opinion. But, in the months going into it, though, a lot of people weren't expecting anything good. Because you remember when Road to WrestleMania for 30 first started, Punk had just left, and Bryan wasn't in the main event, and Batista won the Rumble. There were a lot of bad feelings around WrestleMania, even after Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber I didn't enjoy either. But it wasn't until like a few weeks right before WrestleMania that people started to get pumped. So, which is probably for the better. If people set their expectations high, I think they still would have exceeded them, because I think that WrestleMania I don't know if it's the best of all time, but it's absolutely like in the top 5, in my opinion. As well as 28, 17, and a few others as well. But, yeah, I would definitely say that WrestleMania 30 exceeded my expectations. His next question, do you have any bold predictions for WrestleMania 31? So here's the deal. Putting on my predictions for WrestleMania tomorrow on WrestleRant Radio, an article forum on the date of WrestleMania 31 on Sunday. So a lot of cool things happening with that. So I'm not going to give my predictions for the show right here, right now. Bold predictions, though? I don't even know if a bold prediction would be Rollins or Lesnar. I mean, that's a bold prediction. A bold prediction would not be Rollins cashes in, because a lot of people are expecting that anyway. or at least realize there's a chance of that happening. A bold prediction would be like saying that, I don't know, Heath Slater wins the Battle Royal. I don't know if I have any of those in me. A bold prediction would be Adrian Neville wins the Battle Royal. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I don't know. I don't think I would go with Neville winning the Battle Royal. I think there's a chance that he could be in it, like I said earlier. But that would be a bold prediction that I probably could believe that there is a chance of happening. I don't see Lesnar winning and then the show ending on that, unless Rollins cashes in the next night, but I don't think that happens either. I think that there's a bigger chance of that happening, but they wouldn't close off WrestleMania with Lesnar winning. And if it happens, I'd mark the fuck out. That'd be great if they could swerve us like that. I don't expect it to happen, though. But yeah, that's one of my bold predictions. There's really nothing else that I feel like that I'm not a bold predictor guy anyway. My predictions are usually 50-50 at best, most pay-per-views anyway. So yeah, take that as a bold prediction for WrestleMania 31. Adrian Neville, or whoever the NXT call-up is, whoever the winner of that tournament is on Thursday, will win the Battle Royal. That's my bold prediction for you guys. His next question, if Seth Rollins does not cash in and Dean Ambrose wins the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, would you like to see the two feud for the belt? I want to see them feud at some point. I feel like it's still too early. I feel like that is, like I've said in the past, is like the modern-day Triple H, Shawn Michaels. To that extent, maybe not really. I don't feel like it's on that same level just yet. But it did give me that same feeling that Michaels and HBK did, that it's a multi-year rivalry. They can always go back to it. Great matches, great promos, great feud, you know. So, feuding so early at the WrestleMania, probably not. Dean Ambrose is not as hot as he was, and that would be one way to make one way to make him hot again, is to give him the belt no one cares about, granted, and then have him feud with Seth Rollins. And in saying that Seth Rollins would be demoted and going to feuding from, being in WWE World Heavyweight title contention to feuding for the IC title, like, I'm not going to say that's completely out of the question, because look what happened to Daniel Bryan. The guy headlined Fastlane. He almost won the Royal Rumble. I mean, not in storyline, but he was a huge pick to win it coming out of his injury. And then, now he's in a throwaway IC title match at WrestleMania where he's just another guy, which is probably going to open the show too. So, yeah, I feel like I'm not going to completely say there's a chance of it not happening. I don't know if I would love to see it. I feel like Rollins will cash in. He has to cash in the next couple of months. So that feud, if it's going to be revived, it has to be like a few months again. It can't be just for like one pay-per-view and it's, a done deal. And Rollins has to cash in the very near future, and I feel like he should cash in successfully. And it has to be in the near future, because like I said, WrestleMania or Money in the Bank is only, I think it's in June again this year, so he only has like 3 more months, so he can't waste time in any other feud with anyone but Roman Reigns or Orton or whoever. So, no, I wouldn't, I wouldn't mind it, but I feel like it's not really that likely, and I would not love to see it. I think there's other potential challengers for Dean Ambrose, like Daniel Bryan or Dolph Ziggler, before Seth Rollins. I feel like, too much too soon. Leave that feud to linger a little bit more before you get back to it, in my opinion. His next question, in your opinion, what is the hardest and easiest match to predict at WrestleMania? Hardest, I would think, is the Undertaker Bray Wyatt match, because that could very well go either way. I still think Undertaker wins, but it could very well go either way. So that what I would say is the hardest match to predict. Easiest, probably Sting Triple H. It's funny, because even though it's like the most predictable that Sting is going to win, if Triple H wins, it's so stupid. I mean, I wouldn't get that, especially, for Sting to come in and wrestle one match, he's not going to lose, in my opinion. I mean, that's just dumb. It's a dumb business decision. It makes no sense. I don't believe they're going to do that, but like I said, never say never with this company. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, even though it's the most predictable match on the card, I think that's the most excited match that I'm for. The most highly anticipated on the card. Excuse me, let me rephrase all that. The most anticipated match on the card for me personally, after the way it's been built up since Survivor Series and the hot angle they did last week on Raw, I think I'm looking forward to that match more than anything else on the card right now. I'm looking forward to the card on the whole, obviously, but I feel like I'm the most excited for that match specifically. But yeah, I feel like that's the most predictable and that Sting wins. And there's a few other matches on the card. I mean, I feel like the Babyfaces will win in the Divas match. The tag team title match, Cesaro and Kid will win. And, a few other matches are kind of, like easy to tell, but I feel like the easiest is Sting winning. I feel like there's no other way around that match than Sting winning. Nothing else makes sense. At Cody Collier 37, now to the Twitter questions. How do you think The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt's entrances will be if it doesn't get dark in time for their match at WrestleMania? Now, that's a great question, because a lot of people have been asking that same thing. It doesn't get dark, I think, over there until, the show starts at 4. Pacific time over where WrestleMania is in Santa Clara. So it doesn't get dark until like 7, which is like the final hour. And WrestleMania starts at 4. That's like, 10 o'clock over here. And I don't think they're going to put the matches that far late in the show. So it would be interesting. I'm interested to see in how they work it and like what it's going to look like. Is it going to ruin the match? I don't think so. I feel like the match itself could be either good or bad, but I don't feel like the entrances, if it's still light out, are going to ruin it. It's going to be cool to see, though. Like I said, I feel like it's going to be very cool to see. And it's not going to be very bright either, especially if they do it late in the show and the light is still out. It's not going to be a bright, sunny day. It's going to be starting to get dark. Even it might not be pitch black, but it's still going to be, a little bit on the darker side anyway, so it might not even matter. Like I said, I don't think it's going to ruin the match, but it's going to be interesting to see. So a great question, though. I'm looking forward to see how they handle that. Next question from @DanielCabeza59. What are your thoughts on Roman Reigns' comments about the fans in which he said, "Shut up and let me talk"? So he's referring to an interview that he did with Rolling Stones a couple days ago, and where I think it might have been right after the Raw promo, where people were chanting Daniel Bryan at him. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm like saying that, you can't chant CM Punk, but you can chant Daniel Bryan. People can chant whatever they want when they go to these shows. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Like it feels annoying to me. At least in this case, it makes sense because Daniel Bryan's on the card. He's in the company. CM Punk is not. And they stopped chanting CM Punk a long time ago. At least as loudly as they were in 2014. Thankfully, that has since stopped. But I don't blame him. I feel like, but the what chants are probably the worst. The Daniel Bryan chants aren't as bad, because yeah, Daniel Bryan should have been in that spot. You should respect what Roman Reigns is saying, but if you don't like him, you can chant basically whatever you want. But the what chants, to me, are the most annoying. It feels like those are the most disrespectful thing you can chant at a wrestler, especially at a legend like Roman Reigns is still a rookie, so I don't really care as much. It's still annoying, but at someone like an Undertaker, or a Triple H, or a legend like Ric Flair, or Michaels, or something like that, to me is very disrespectful. But yeah, what was your question? Oh yeah, basically, the way that he handled it, like the way that he said it coming out of the Rumble, was very John Cena-esque, in saying that, oh yeah, I don't, people can chant what they want. It was a very Cena-like answer, but it made more sense for him to say that as a babyface. The whole "shut up and let me talk" thing, I don't blame him for saying that, but it won't exactly endear him to the audience. Like, I'll say that much. It won't get him very popular with the WWE universe if he just bashes them and says, yeah, just shut up and let me talk, I'm better than you, or whatever. That's a very heel thing to say. So unless he's going heel at WrestleMania, if I were Roman Reigns, I would stray away from saying that. And anyway, that's just the way that I see it. His next question: who is your favorite superstar in today's WWE? Dean Ambrose. I know CM Punk was my number one for a while, or William Regal will always be my number one, but in today's WWE, like, he's not wrestling anymore, obviously. CM Punk is gone, and Jericho is currently out, and who is my number 3? Oh, Christian, of course, is currently out as well. And then my 5 is always tied between, it's pretty much solidified with The Miz, but Ryback and Zack Ryder are kind of like 5A and 5B. But, I would have to say my favorite wrestler right now on the main roster, or in WWE, would have to be Dean Ambrose. I've loved his work since The Shield, but he's especially endeared to me, or especially appealed to me, since he broke away from The Shield and has been doing the whole Lieutenant Fringe thing. I think it's great. So, my favorite superstar right now would have to be Dean Ambrose. His third question: do you think that Daniel Bryan can make the Intercontinental Championship relevant if he wins at WrestleMania? Same thing with John Cena and the U.S. title. I've talked about this before, but yes, I feel like he can make it somewhat relevant, or at least more relevant than it is right now. It's not going to get prestigious overnight, but if they can give him a nice long title reign, give him good opponents, and this is all in theory. It's all about execution with this company in the aftermath. 2 very key words: execution and aftermath. 2 things that WWE lacks far too often, unfortunately. But yeah, I think in theory, in John Cena too, I'm not exactly enthralled with the idea of him winning the U.S. title, but I've pretty much accepted it because we know it's happening at WrestleMania, that he is winning. I feel like that's a done deal that he is winning. That said, yeah, I do. I do feel like they can make those mid-card belts relevant if they give them TV time, if they can headline house shows and stuff like that, and they can give them proper storylines, not this Challenger of the Month bullshit, and making them fucking lose every match. I know they're, with Rusev, that's not an issue, but it is with Bad News Barrett. I think we all realize that. But yeah, I think there's a better chance of those belts being taken seriously if they were around the waists of people that people care about. I know Rusev has done a really good job with that belt, but Cena is, WWE title material. So for him to hold that U.S. championship, it does lend some credibility to that championship. But when he drops it, will it go back to being chip? Probably. But for the meantime, though, it could mean something. So I'm looking forward to that. At the very least, I'm not very much looking forward to him beating Rusev and being the first one to give him his first loss in WWE. But I am interested by the idea of him being U.S. champion. Same thing with Daniel Bryan as Intercontinental champion. At Marlon the Man, his question was, with the way the company is currently, what could you see as a potential WrestleMania 33 main event, and where is John Cena on that card? And not even WrestleMania 32. He said WrestleMania 33. So unless that's a typo, we got 2 years until 33. Anything can change in 2 years, obviously. I mean, I'll probably be in 2017, I'll probably be looking back on this video to see if my prediction was right. But yeah, I would definitely say for WrestleMania 33, anything can happen. John Cena might not even, he might be retired by that point. I don't think so. He's going to be around for a very long time. So as we've seen with John Cena in recent years, he's been in the mid-card, not even upper mid-card, the mid-card. He was on the fourth to the top match last year, and the same thing this year with Rusev, working with young guys. Going to go over each of them, but he's still working with young guys, though. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be in the main event of that WrestleMania. I feel like, as I said to John, I don't know who else left is there to feud with him in terms of main roster guys right now. But in terms of NXT guys, he can work with Finn Balor or Kevin Owens. I feel like that's a match we could see at WrestleMania 32 next year. I feel like Kevin Owens, if he gets called up at some point in the near future, in the next couple of months or something, that's a feud we could see right off the bat. Owens and John Cena, I feel like it would be a great match, a great feud. WrestleMania 33, that'd be an amazing match to do in the main event. Cena versus Owens for the WWE title. But yeah, it could be, Hideo Itami versus Finn Balor for the title for all we know. Anything can change in 2 years. Like, had you told me 2 years ago in 2013 that the main event of the 2015 WrestleMania event, WrestleMania 31, would be Brock Lesnar as champion, I would have maybe believed that. But Roman Reigns, I would have never believed that. Him, breaking away from the Shield as quickly as he did, I don't know if I would have ever believed him main eventing WrestleMania as quickly as he did, as well as, like Undertaker and Bray Wyatt and all these other matches. Like, those are matches that you would have never seen coming 2 years ago. At heel_Michael, his question was, which matches do you think will shine, and which matches do you think will underperform at WrestleMania 31? So in terms of matches that will shine, and like I've said before, the card itself could be very hit or miss. There's a wide era range, for lack of a better term, in terms of, like, they could be very, very good, or they could be very, very bad. So that's why I'm not setting my expectations or hopes too high. Like, I'm still excited for the show. That's not going to change. But I'm not going to say, oh, this match is going to be phenomenal, because, it could very well bomb. We've seen that in the past, especially with Taker and Lesnar last year. I was really looking forward to that, and that was a flop of a match. So for this year, in terms of what matches I think could steal the show, not saying they will, but could steal the show, Orton and Rollins, absolutely. I feel like those two, they had a really good match on Raw. They've always had great chemistry. The feud itself has been okay. Could be better. I feel like it's been good. They kind of botched it a little bit after Orton's return and playing nice with the Authority, buddy. That I thought was dumb. But the feud itself has been good, though, dating back to November, and I feel like their in-ring match could be very, very good, so I'm looking forward to that. Also, the Intercontinental title ladder match. I feel like that could also be a complete clusterfuck with like 7 or 8 guys involved. But, if booked properly, I hate saying that because I say that with every match, but it's the case. I feel like all these matches could be very, very good, but if booked properly, they could be great. And I feel like that's the case for this match and the Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania. So those two matches, I feel like, of all the matches on the card, I feel like will shine the most. Could underperform Taker and Wyatt. Like I said before, that matchup could be really, really good, but there's a very good chance that could be very, very bad as well, as we saw with last year's match between Taker and Lesnar. Those two not have, needless to say, the same chemistry they had back in 2002, or 2003, or both years, actually, because they had a great Hell in a Cell match in No Mercy, one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of all time, if not the best Hell in a Cell match of all time. And, 12, 13 years later, it's not the same. It's over a decade later, they're not the same people they were back then. That's why the matchup bombed. The chemistry was not there. So that matchup I feel like could underperform. And then Rusev Cena too, I know that's kind of a shock to some people, but with that matchup, I feel like Lana is an integral part of it. And to not have her there at WrestleMania, I mean, this is all speculation, but she's not on the show right now. She was not on Raw or SmackDown the last couple of weeks after, the whole agreeing to face John Cena at WrestleMania for Rusev and agreeing to that matchup. it makes sense from a storyline standpoint to keep her off. But, you know, she's been one of the MVPs of WWE TV since she arrived in the main roster alongside Rusev for the last year. So, in my opinion, she deserves to be at WrestleMania alongside Rusev. And if Rusev wins, you know, and I don't think so, but, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be something missing from that match if she's not there. And she should be there for that matchup when it happens at WrestleMania. So, and that's why that matchup may underperform. If she's not there, and there's a chance she might not be, which I think is ludicrous, she should be there. But, if she's not there, I think it could be missing something, and the match could very well suffer as a result. I thought they had a really good match at Fastlane, but the story the second time around may not be as good. I mean, we just gotta wait and see. That's pretty much, you know, the bottom line for everything. We just gotta wait and see. But all the matches in the card, though, like I said before, on the whole, I'm really looking forward to them. Final question comes from N Marachi. His question was, what is your favorite WrestleMania pre-fight video package? So a great way to end the show on this week, right before WrestleMania 31. The final question, right before Mania 31 on Sunday. So a couple answers here, and just a little disclaimer, you can check out John's top 10 favorite WrestleMania video packages. He made a list on nextEraWrestling.net, not .weebly.com. That link still works, but the .net, though, is now my domain, officially, permanently, for the next several years, hopefully forever. So check out the website. He typed up an article about late last year with his top 10 favorite WrestleMania video packages. And I thought it was a great article. Make sure to check it out. Just type on John's Jargon in the columnist corner in my website, nextEraWrestling.net, and you can check out his top 10 list. For me, my favorite WrestleMania pre-fight video packages. I've got a few answers here. Austin Rock, absolutely on there. Set to My Way by Limp Bizkit, an amazing video package. And even though I wasn't growing up as a fan, it does not resonate with me as well as it does with other people, but it's still a fantastic video package, and I love watching it. It's probably my favorite part of the matchup. I like the matchup, but the video package itself I thought was great, especially in the interview setting with Rock saying, or Austin saying, I need to beat you, Rock. I need to beat you more than anything you'll ever know, or something along those lines. And I thought it was a great line that gives me chills just thinking about it. So that's on there. Not my favorite, but it's one of the best ones, and I love it. That one, Punk and Jericho from 28. I love the video package. I love the rivalry. But the video package itself I thought was really, really good. And maybe I'm just putting this on there. I probably would have still put it on there anyway, but I just watched WrestleMania 28 yesterday, and I will love that video package. Just love watching it back. Even more so than the match itself, I think. I thought the match was really, really good. But the video package I thought was exceptional, especially the ending where CM Punk, and I tweeted this out earlier today, where Punk says, I'm the best in the world, and Jericho says, at everything I do, pipe bomb, and I thought that was great. So, yeah, that's a great video package. If that's not my favorite, then it's definitely, I think these two are tied for first. There's a couple answers, but I feel like these two are tied for first place for my favorite video packages in terms of WrestleMania. Punk and Jericho, and then Daniel Bryan Triple H. Set to Monster by Imagine Dragons, the same artist as Radioactive. Not a huge Imagine Dragons fan. I don't have much of their music, but I do have Radioactive and that song Monster. That video package was just phenomenal. I remember watching it on the WrestleMania 30 pre-show, and I'm like, that's fucking amazing. Like, I was looking forward to that match between him and Triple H anyway, but wow, like that, it just detailed Bryan's entire career, and I'm a sucker for looking back on the careers and, the history behind wrestling and kind of acknowledging the past, which WWE does not do too often. So when it does happen, I'm a very huge fan of it. I'm a massive fan of it. And they did that in that video package, kind of detailing his way to the top of the card in his days as an NXT guy, as Mr. Money in the Bank, as a mid-carder, as the World Heavyweight Champion, WWE Champion, his chase for the championship. Just phenomenal. I thought it was one of the best video packages I've ever seen. So those two match video packages that would probably be tied for number one on my list. Punk and Jericho and Daniel Bryan Triple H. So that's going to do it today, folks, for hashtag AskGSM. Thank you, as always, for sending in your amazing, awesome, fantastic questions. Always have a blast answering them for you guys in this video forum. And as I said at the start of the show, if you want to send in your question, you can leave a comment at the comment section of this very video. You can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM, or find me on Facebook at Graham Justin Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself. So as always, folks, make sure to share, subscribe, comment, and like the video. Always appreciated. Enjoy WrestleMania on Sunday. If you couldn't already tell, I am extremely excited for it. I've been in the WrestleMania mood for weeks now, but especially this final week with so much going on, and you know, in WWE. Got a lot of stuff going on myself too. Check out the Facebook page for more details on that full lineup. A lot of cool videos coming up this week here on the channel. On my reviews of 28, 29, 30, my top 5 favorite WrestleManias in video form coming up here on the channel on Friday. WrestleMania 31 predictions from WrestleRant Radio. The excerpts will be up here on the channel and through the rest of the week. So make sure to subscribe to get all the newest content from the channel. It's going to be a huge week. So like I said, folks, enjoy WrestleMania 31 on Sunday, and I'll catch you guys next Monday.